This is Senate institutions again, reading started a little bit earlier. Now we're going to be talking to DEC about parts of section 10 or section 9. Take it away.
Well, good afternoon. My name is Eric Flatt. I'm the Director of Engineering within the Water Investment Division, and along with Patrick Monk. Afternoon. Good afternoon. Patrick is the manager of our state revolving funds, both drinking water and clean water. And that's a major part of what we're here to talk about. So to start out, this first screen just simply shows you the sections of the appropriations within the two sections of capital bill that we're talking about. The first is the match for the federal 2026 SRF grant, and then we have to match that at 20%. So that's what the 590,000 represents. I was in here earlier before the capital bill was put together, and actually the series of slides that are in this presentation, the committee's already seen, so we can skip some of this and go back over unless you want to focus on it. And included in this is a description of the cycle, the annual cycle. And it's up to the committee if you want to hear about that again. I know you only hear about it once a year, so it's
all right. Of course, I don't want to take away any of your presentation, Eric, as far as what you want to do. I was hoping for some of the people that have been on this committee before in the past. When it's all said and done, and that's why Jared was in here as well, because he remembers the days as well. But just the involvement of what some of the cash has done, of what it's leveraged for our dollar amounts, over the period of where we are. We have cash funds A and B. And so if we could spend some time talking about that, I'd just like to have the committee see what we were able to do with cash. Like sometimes it depend on 14 to $1 leverage from the state. I mean, leverage from the federal government.
The very last slide is a table that shows all of the infrastructure money that we received, the federal infrastructure money it's similar to the base SRF program, but it's a much larger chunk of money. It had slightly different match requirements initially, and then eventually it ramped back up to what the standard 20%. So there's a table at the end that I can get to, and I can either do it at the end or
whatever your presentation, of course, the chairs.
But we're willing to be very flexible here and move off of the topics that you feel like we're going to be briefed on.
The topics we've done, I'll skip over quickly unless we stop you, and
That would be good.
get to the end.
We should just put on. Why don't I do this? If we're going to talk about drinking water first, I'll pass out the draft list. This is it's been put together last month. It's not fully vetted. We haven't done the projects. It gives you an idea of projects that have come in that have applied for the fund. Thank you. We still have a way to go to the project. They're not in ranked order right now. They're upper grouping our construction projects, and down below we see the little gap, the list, those are planned projects. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump to a slide that talks a little bit about the federal dollars that are going into this list. Probably the best way to go through this. So find the slide, Patrick. Get down. I think it's number 14. Yeah. You're there. So this essentially matches up with what you see on this sheet these are the 83 projects, which includes both construction and planning. The total for construction, roughly 150 million, there's another roughly 6 million planned. So if you combine it's around 156 million, right? Again, we haven't vetted it. There may be some projects that drop off. One interesting piece of information that's in this sheet, aside from the dollars, different projects, you can see the column labeled bond vote status. This is key. We can't provide construction loans to a community until they pass the bond. That's a really significant milestone for community to actually move forward with a big project. This list is a collection of the applications that come into us, not to receive a loan, but to get on a priority that we have ranked. It's sort of a two-step process. They submit an application, we go through the process of ranking, we then adopt the priority list, and then communities start submitting their loan applications when they're ready to move forward with the project. Go down through the bullets on this page. See roughly how much money we're estimating to be available for this list. Down to about 2/3 of the way down, say figure the range 79 to 87 billion. So those numbers include carryover from the previous year, the year that we're in right now. So we're estimating loans that may not actually move forward this year, because not all loans, not all projects are on the priority list, even those that passed the bond necessarily move forward in the year that they number of issues can come up along the way that slow the project. The range you see here is based on some recent information from our colleagues at EPA, informing us that the annual grants that we receive for this program, we're seeking a match for, they're likely going to increase. So would we put together this
So you're
project?
going to increase?
Yes, and I'll explain.
Please. Is that,
Sounds ironic. Yeah. So what has happened is when we put the budget together, we anticipated around a $5 million, a little under $5 million for our base. We in recent history, up until FY22, federal grants was in the $11 million range. Since starting in 22, Congress has been appropriating money for congressionally designated spending earmarks. And the way it worked is those earmarks came directly off the state allocations for their SRF programs. So it was a direct deduction. And as a result, what we would normally have received in our capitalization grant of 11 million was reduced down to just 1.6 million. So when we put the budget together in the fall, our presumption was we were going to continue with these earmarks. It turns out, when the budget was passed on March 14th, federal budget, the earmarks are stripped out, and they restored the full amount that would otherwise come to the insert programs. So we haven't seen the official allotments yet, but we've been given every indication that those amounts will go up. And we're not asking for the match at this point for the additional amount. It's just sort of informational at this point, which also explains why you see a range at the bottom. 79 million is based on the amount that we had anticipated in the fall. And the 7 million is the amount that would go towards projects if the full 11 million is available. But we have 2 years in which to essentially make the value. So that's why it's not super critical to get the full match right now. So we could come back in the second year by the end of receive the remainder. The same scenario applies to clean water because there were earmarks that were deducted from the clean water SRF grants.
Do you mind going to the next page on that? I think it shows really what I been telling these guys about for a long time, as far as,
So the last 15.
I'm looking at 15 and looking at $351,845,000 that was been leveraged over smart management of monies. And some of that is like, it's just huge amounts of dollars that advocating for dollars and all of that. So to see some of these, to see some of these funds and all that are just beyond wildest dreams about what's been accomplished.
And it's a huge factor in being able to leave potentials into this list. Maybe not every project, but a good share of them. I can tell you right now, we're at the point in this 5-year cycle where we'll be receiving it's the fourth column, the federal fiscal year 25 grant. These are the supplemental grants. The match money that I've been talking to up to this point, the 590,000, that's to our base grant. When I refer to base, those are the annual grants. So we've been getting since on the drinking water side since 1997. So this 5-year IIJA money is on top of the base grants. At the very bottom, figure 14.5 million. That's from cash fund. So in the page 494 is this authorization to free up that money to use the match. And likewise, it's in the appropriation bill as well.
And how much is that 14.5 buy us?
So if you look up above, it matches the very first row, clean water, general supplemental grants. So there's 2 rounds, 12+ million clean water. And it matches the third row, the general supplemental grants for drinking water, which is a little over the 47 million. So the match is only required for the supplemental grants. You see other grants here, on the second row, clean water, emerging contaminants grants, no match required for that. And those loans actually go out at 100% subsidy. So the communities that receive the loans from those grants do not have to pay back the loans. So that's on the clean water side. On the drinking water side, you're down to the fourth row, and that's similar type of appropriation or grant for emerging contaminants for drinking water system. Just think in terms of PFAS, that's the primary target. So those dollars, no match required for that. Those dollars also go out at 100% subsidy. The last line, and this is the one that is most questionable in terms of Vermont's needs, is lead service line grants. They're not 100% subsidized, but it's a substantial 49% of the grant goes out as subsidy. However, this is a good thing. It doesn't really look like Vermont needs all of its money. So far we have received the federal 22 grant, 23 grant, and we decided to hold off on 24 grant after that. So we have one more year in which to make a decision. So the way things are looking right now, probably not going to need it, but we're not absolutely certain. And there is no match refunded. That's what he's saying.
A lot of money.
Yeah.
But what happened, if you look down below the state match rate, that row, that shows you the match requirements. As it progressed through the 5 years, first 2 years, 10%. And on those same grants, the supplementals, and then starting in the third year, last year, for us, it bumped up to 20%. Grants went up each year until the last year. That's another thing you'll see, that the dollar amounts go up each year with supplementals. The lead service line is static. Emerging contaminants went up a little bit on the clean water side, and then it's static. And drinking water emerging contaminants, it's the same value across the board, basically. Slight difference between the first year and the second.
On this sheet right here, these are sheets that made your list, and these are projects that you expect that at some point in time you'll be able to fund.
Yeah, in theory, if they're all ready to go this year, we would draw a line based on how much money we actually have available at the time we go to adopt the list. But let's just say, sake of argument, it's that lower number, the 79 billion, then we could do in theory 79 billion worth. So we would draw a line. We are actually looking at cash flow model with the bond bank, whereby we might be able to go a little further down the list because we have fairly substantial cash balance available that we could essentially overcommit for short term, knowing that we will get the additional monies well before community is actually building out their project and needing the cash. But essentially, that's how we operate. We go down through based on the ranking. What you're seeing there is not an actual ranking of projects. It's just the compilation of what's come in. We still have a ways to go that are ranked. And it's the same basic drill on the clean water side. It's like clean it out. Spring water. For any other questions on drinking water, we can switch over.
I'm good if you guys are.
Yeah.
Okay. Care.
There.
Thank you.
With one extra copy. Oops, you know, there we are.
The two sheets.
That's it.
Yeah. That's my.
Yeah.
Give you a moment to look at the list, and then I'm gonna tie this into our match. In fact, go to C1, explain what's happening there. Clean water side. You won't see a comparable request for clean water SRF match in this year's. So the list, you see a line under Chester. Unfortunately, the rest of that column is actually on the backside, if the bond vote status. So these are projects we confirmed that passed the bond. And so that's why we've drawn a line. Similar to drinking water, we haven't yet ranked these projects, but we have gone so far to figure out how far along they are for readiness. And so that, as I mentioned earlier, that's such a key milestone in our program. That's not to say that the projects below the line won't necessarily pass bonds during this next cycle, but these are the ones we know about and passed already. This total list is about 275 million, and we have the number that we projected have available for the, I guess it's actually on the slide. So on 14. It's just drinking water. What does drinking water? I don't know if we have it on the slide or not.
Protected clean water need.
No.
Okay, we should have said this. That was.
Well, suffice to say, it's well below 275. We can follow up, send it to the information committee afterwards. It's need to go through the board or the number to come up with a rough estimate. there's a slide, up above, 13. This was done earlier. It showed pending loans, coming out of this current fiscal year, 37 million. Some of those loans don't move forward, then that money will also move forward. I haven't broken down the total for those that have bonded. The value of the bond is the aggregate of all projects that submitted applications. So these lists will be completed at some time, probably later this month, and then we'll put out a draft list to have a hearing, take comment, and then finalize it. Probably sometime in June. Probably the June, that might be optimistic. That may be optimistic, but that's a rough time frame.
Well, Senator Plunkett said he'll stay here until.
So it's a lot of projects, a lot of money. We have some really large projects that are in the very near future. The single biggest one, Burlington, there it's $124 million project built up to fiscal cycle. That phase of the project is not over yet because it won't care until next year. We're essentially being hit with a bow wave projects. This is an extraordinarily large amount of program.
You said something, I think that shocked all of us. And that was that you expected more money than what we had thought before.
Yes.
And, you know, I mean, we hear all kinds of news in Washington and all that stuff. But it's not even that shocking. It's the shocking of that we had the COVID dollars and all that. So where did the newfound monies come from the federal government, or what's the take on that?
Again, the total amount that was appropriated didn't change for the EPA appropriation. What changed is that the CDSs were eliminated. So the top line value didn't change, but what changed was they essentially eliminated a program. And so the money that would otherwise go to the CDSs stayed with the state revolving fund. And that's why we kind of restored it back to that level. Now, to get back to what I mentioned earlier about match. So similar to drinking water, we assume that our match requirements less this year, as we have money carried over from last year. And this applies to both drinking water and clean water. We had for the drinking water side, about 1.2 million that we were carrying forward from last year. Yeah, 1.2 million, which was enough to meet what we anticipated for this next grant coming up, federal fiscal year 25 grant. Needed 932,000 to fully match that this coming grant. It's now likely going to be higher. So just sticking with what we assumed at the time as the basis for the budget, we had excess money to match the 25 grant. So the second year of the biennium, the 26 grant would be available from the state. We don't really know what that amount will be at this point. For budgeting purposes, we assumed level funding, and level funding at the time at this lower figure. Now it's really the wild card at this point. On the clean water side, again, we had monies carried over from the previous year. That's for the same reasons that at the time that we put the budget together, we actually assumed they weren't going to provide CDS. And so we carried what we thought was a start level on the clean water side of 7.8 million. That in the level of funding that we're receiving up until these congressionally designated earmarks grew down on the SRF and down. So at any rate, as a result, we had excess from the 25 appropriation. So enough so that we didn't need any match for this lowered federal clean water SRF, right? So that's why you don't see why you see zero actually for this fiscal year coming up. And then as far as the second year, unlike drinking water, the clean water match is part of the 10 million for clean water initiatives. The reason for that is the Clean Water Board operates on an annual budget cycle, and they have to approve the amounts that go towards clean water initiatives. Well, in amongst the clean water initiatives is the match. So we'll have a better idea after this fall. But the federal government can pass its budget.
You next year out for that?
At least I don't have.
Oh, it's just fine.
The other funds that are in section 10 that are part of the presentation is the $4 million pollution control units. So the projects, so the pollution control project sheet, the 275 million. Some of the funding for that would come from the programs, the relatively small amount. We don't know yet which project bundles, we haven't ranked them, but only the very highest priority projects will be many of those great dollars.
Yeah, I know, I agree.
It's essentially the two funds, that is one list with both sources of money with funds projects.
A lot of money in it.
And a lot of demand. Again, I think next year at this time, it will be real challenging with the brownfield project.
Yeah, we had about 100 million available for clean water projects last year. We should have about the same this year, more or less. Still gets taking into account all the projects that are in the queue, but we'll be doing those calculations over the next month or so. And as Eric's, as my clean water priority is, showed 275 is in there, 275 in there. Again, not all the projects to go forward, but gives you a sense of the relative scale. Sure.
The single largest loan on here is South Burlington, Bartlett Bay, 32.8 million. We know Burlington passed its bond, so it's a project that's real. And they're making major changes to their wastewater infrastructure. They're going to essentially convert one of their plants into a pump station and pump to the main plant. So it's the east plant that's going to be essentially converted into a pump station. That'll leave them with two wastewater treatment plants, the north end, Burlington, and the main plant. They have to upgrade the main plant to take the additional flow from the east.
Is this gonna allow them to better control any spillage into the lake?
Yes, there are more improvements other than just simply upgrading or increased hydraulic capacity. I also feel that the area that's served by the main plant can actually support more housing units. That's part.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Catherine. Thank you. Hope by trying to show you some of what we
Yeah.
have done. It's a lot of big dollars. And I got a lot of my information only from Eric, who's been very helpful, but Jared and I have been through this for a long time, and Jared's been very helpful. If you guys ever need to know any history of any of the, Jared's been very helpful to me, as far as the histories of and how it flowed and all of that, as everyone has been, so I've been appreciative.
Any other questions?
Comment.
Sure.
One town from my district. And only just one town, it's my town. And only in my town, it's my street.
You get out there,
Really
get a
good.
shovel out there.
You do something for the state, you know?
Yeah.
Well,
Right down to.
good luck in your retirement, sir. And thank you for your service. Yep.
Thank you.
Quite a ride. Yeah. You started yet today, right?
Yeah, it's what it feels like.
And then by the time I go like, oh.